Hi guys, so Aaron Dade here, and we are at the seventh and final stage of restoration where this is your surrender stage. And I call this that realizing or the reckoning, it's really just realizing that you are not in control. Throughout life, you will have these turnabout of fair play, I guess you could say, are really these turning point moments where you recognize that you are not in control of the result of your life, but you're in control of the journey that you're on. So your decisions can alter the journey, but at the end of the day, God pulls all the strings. He understands what's the beginning from the end. My favorite person in the Bible in particular is King Solomon. So for this particular stage, I really want to highlight King Solomon. And if you don't know very much about King Solomon, God came to him and asked him of all the things, what does he want from God? And he asked for wisdom. King Solomon is David's son, and he could have had basically anything that he wanted, and he said, "I want wisdom." And he's a great man. He had a wonderful life and he did wonderful things for God. However, where the Lord really highlighted to me about this surrender, how this relates to the surrender stage, is here in 1 Kings chapter 11 and verses 8 through 11, where it says, "Thus he did for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. Now the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but did not observe what the Lord had commanded. So the Lord said to Solomon, because you have done this, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant." Okay, remember guys, this is King Solomon, the wisest man ever. It's just proven he is the wisest man to ever walk the earth for multiple reasons. However, he had weaknesses, and he was not in control of everything that happened in his life, even though he was the wisest man ever. He literally asked for wisdom from God. And as you can see, God still held him accountable for his covenant and his statutes. God states in the first commandments in Exodus that you may not have any idols. You may not worship any other gods. I am a jealous God. I'm first, period, point blank. And Solomon had multiple wives, and let's be clear about this. Having multiple wives during that period of time was really saying that he had multiple relationships. Sometimes these relationships were more political than an actual love or anything like that. Solomon loved or had love for these people, but a lot of times the relationship was more political. And so King Solomon had all these relationships, and eventually all of that pressure led him away from God. And God had actually said to him on several different occasions, "Hey, I do not want you marrying multiple people from this specific place because they will turn your heart away from me." And Solomon did not listen, even though the wisest man on earth did not listen. So how this relates to me, I consider myself a pretty smart guy. I consider myself a pretty aware person, a very logical person. However, I have weak spots like everybody else has weak spots. And I understand that sometimes I have to surrender things to the Lord because I just can't do it on my own. And, in this stage, you're going to see tons and tons of regret. You're going to see tons and tons of, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I could have helped in this area or adjusted in that area. I really should have been more there for you, whoever the spouse is that's dealing with somebody in the surrender stage. I could have done better. However, sometimes we really fall victim to our own temptations and our own desires. Like, for instance, King Solomon, he had his own personal desires that are not, yes, he had political marriages, but, he had personal desires too. And it led to his downfall, is really the point in this surrender stage. Is if you don't surrender, your own personal statutes or personal character flaws, if you don't surrender those to the Lord, then you're going to end up fighting them over and over and over in a constant pattern, a constant battle within yourself. And for me, my biggest thing was just wanting to do it all on my own. Not wanting to have to reach for help when my wife and I were separated. But either way, throughout my life, a lot of times the whole asking for help thing, it was like, for what to me? Like, what am I asking you for help? That seems like more work for me. However, when it comes to the Lord, sometimes you're just going to he's going to make it so that you have to ask him. And that you have to be willing to receive that help from him, because it's going to be necessary for you to progress. In this surrender stage, you're going to see lots and lots of people that run into their insecurities getting in the way of progress. So they are very close to reaching certain potentials, or in this case, like when you're separated, you guys are very, very close to restoration. However, that insecurity that made the split in the first place rears its ugly head, and now we're back to square one. So that surrender stage is really about understanding that you're surrendering your problems to God, and you're learning how to do things brand new. I can tell you right now, when I had to learn how to do certain things for the first time, it was a realization to me that I didn't really know very many people that didn't do things like how I did. And that was that surrender. That was also in the surrender stage, was that everybody in my environment didn't surrender very well either. Like when I first stopped smoking, I knew smokers. That's all I really knew. I had to surrender the temptation and the craving to smoke on a consistent basis. Like, not just, one time I did it. No, I had to tell myself, even now, I'll be out somewhere and I'll see people smoking, and I'll have to tell myself, I don't smoke anymore. And that has to do with me surrendering that issue to God and understanding that I submit to him first. I'm not in control of everything. I can't just do everything on my own. And looking at the verse in 1 Kings, because at first I really wanted to go into Jonah and being in the belly of a whale and not listening to God. And God really revealed to me, those are great examples, However, one of the greatest examples is King Solomon, because we look up to him so much, like especially me. I mean, I remember reading children's Bible stories and stories about King Solomon then, and having a great admiration for his decision-making process. Considering all angles and being able to kind of like stand in that gap and make unbiased decisions without having so much emotion involved in it that it would cloud his decision-making. King Solomon was great at he was just great at making decisions. The problem is, though, eventually you have to choose. And this is where you see in that surrender stage where you have to surrender certain things to God, because your limitations, a lot of times you're going to have to make a decision who you are following. Are you following the enemy, or are you following God? There is no sitting on the fence. A lot of times in relationships, you see a man or a woman, they kind of sit on the fence, and after you're married, there really is no sitting on the fence. God is not going to look at you and say, oh, you had a covenant agreement. Oh, it's okay, you can change your mind. That's not how that works. Now, there are obviously reasons where there can be splits and separations and things like that. Every situation is very specific. There is no generalized way to deal with everything. But at the same time, it's pretty simple. If you have a covenant marriage with a spouse, you just can't stop because you don't feel like it. God is not going to look at you and say it's okay because you don't feel like dealing with it anymore. And a lot of times, again, in that surrender stage, you see this regret. You see a lot of fake starts in that surrender stage as well too, because people will want to revert back to being comfortable. It's very difficult to say, I'm going to surrender this to God. And then when He shows you the decisions that you've made before and you feel that regret, then to say, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to see this much yet. You're showing me too much. That was one of the first things not really the first things, but like that was one of the main things that I saw or was really revealed to me was how much that I did not know, that I thought that I was aware of, but I did not know that my environment a lot of times made decisions for me, that a lot of times my subconscious just automatically chose based on the way that I was kind of set up in the environment that I had set for myself, being addicted to cultures and being addicted to certain behaviors. I was making decisions without even thinking about it. And that happens. The surrender stage, a lot of times, not knowing that and really recognizing that I am not in control, you stop over planning. Oh man, I overplanned for everything. I was always thinking of different angles and different options. Again, the environment that I was in, how things were all going to work out, and now a lot of my answer a lot of times is I'm going to surrender this to God and I'll see what He decides because I don't know what I'm doing. I will probably mess this up if I just try to continue on the path that I'm going. Another realization that I had for me personally throughout all of these 7 stages, a lot of times I just kind of had these moments where it was like, I am not in control. I am messing this up. And the accountability stage, the rebellion stage, the denial stage, really even in the beginning, the identifying, I've had this problem for a while. I am addicted to procrastinating. Every time there's something important happening, I don't want to do it when it's necessary. I'll wait until later on, I'm adding unnecessary pressure on myself on purpose. And I don't know why I'm doing that. And in that identification stage, sometimes I had to say to myself, now especially, I will say to myself, well, we'll see what God decides because I don't know what I'm doing. I've done this for long enough to know that I don't know what I'm doing. In that acceptance stage, when I accepted challenges, this was so many different times where I accepted challenges and did not know what they were. Did not really understand what it was going to take to accomplish or fixing a problem that I had done already. Having to surrender that to the Lord, having to surrender to the Lord in the accountability stage, the ripple effect of my decisions and seeing that it comes back to me. And then in that rebellion stage where I would say, I know, but I just don't care. Not caring does not mean that you're not accountable. And at the end of the day, the Lord holds everybody accountable for whatever they do. As you're seeing with King Solomon here, his covenant and his statutes hold above everybody else. In that denial stage where I was like, this problem is bigger than God, a lot of that thought process in general is just flat out backwards. But I didn't want to accept that the problem wasn't big enough than God. The problem was bigger than me, is really what the deal was. I wanted to say it was God's fault, but it really wasn't. It was bigger than me, and that's what got me to the responsibility stage. Blinders came off, and it was like, whoa, this is a whole new world, and I am responsible for the decisions that I make. And so therefore, now the surrender stage, since I'm not in control, I'm going to send it to somebody that knows what they're doing. Or as in the business world, as they call it, but I'm going to hire out somebody that specializes in a certain area. So, as far as this stage goes with the surrender stage, you're going to see a lot of regret. You're going to see a lot of, I want to change that decision making process. And a lot of times the stages that we've gotten on these videos are really, really you're going to be able to see these so fast and understand what you're actually doing and what to get through and how to get through them. I want to do a 21-day challenge for men after my wife's 90-day challenge. I'm going over these stages and then also what to do within these stages, different Bible verses, different prayers, and then also really how to work through this so your marriage can be restored, your life can be restored. But yeah, these are the 7 stages. I'm very happy to present them to you. Aaron Dade here again. You guys have a wonderful day.